These cookies are a holiday favorite. They have a crisp outer crust and a fudgy inner texture, easy to make and delicious to eat. To make these Mexican chocolate crinkle cookies, you'll start with 1 cup of flour, 1/2 cup of sugar, 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, 1 disc of a Mexican chocolate like abuelita, 1/4 cup of melted butter, 2 eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and powdered sugar. You're going to start by adding your ingredients into a mixing bowl. We're going to beat them with the beater. I'm starting with the melted Mexican chocolate. This chocolate is different than most chocolates. It's very gritty. It's gritty because it's actually made from roasted cocoa beans, and then sugar is added, as is cinnamon. And when a recipe calls for Mexican chocolate, you need to have the Mexican chocolate, not just plain cocoa. Vanilla, 1/4 cup of melted butter. I'm going to add my salt now. I'm going to mix it all together. Now I'm going to just stir in by hand my 1/4 cup of cocoa. Remember your proportions. 3 tablespoons equal a 1/4 cup. Mix it by hand. 1/2 cup of white granulated sugar, all at once, again by hand. And once it's all incorporated, it's time to add our 2 eggs and beat with the electric mixer. Add both of my eggs at the same time and continue beating until it's smooth. See that that's very creamy and smooth, and it just smells delicious. I'm adding my teaspoon of baking powder to the flour and using a whisk, as I always do, just kind of incorporate it into the flour. And the flour now will be incorporated in batches into the chocolate mix. Stir it around. The Mexican chocolate was really only invented for commercial use in 1939. It hasn't been around that long. The Mexican chocolate's been around a long time, but not for commercial use. But it adds such a lovely complexity to your chocolate dishes because of the cinnamon and the roasted cocoa beans. Okay, we have our dry ingredients, the flour and the baking powder incorporated, and I'm just putting this in a cleaner bowl. And now this needs to be covered and refrigerated for an hour before we bake it. I've had our chocolate dough in the refrigerator for about an hour now, and it's really easy to work with my small ice cream scoop. And just putting it, dropping by the scoopfuls into the powdered sugar. I'm going to do 6 at a time, so there's my first 6. And now just using my fingers, and thoroughly coated and then placed on a cookie sheet. And you can add a kick to this recipe if you were so inclined. For example, a Mayan Mexican chocolate crinkle would include cayenne pepper. And there are many recipes out there that also include chili powder. But I prefer just the plain old chocolate Mexican crinkle cookie. And so that's what these are. But you can experiment with it. I have my first dozen cookies on my cookie sheet ready to go into my 350-degree preheated oven for 10 to 12 minutes. And as you can see, I have quite a bit of cookie dough left over. So what I'm going to do next is just to form the remaining dough into balls like this, roll them in the powdered sugar, and then freeze them. And after they're frozen, I'll take them out, put them in a Ziploc bag, and I can take them out of the freezer and bake them at another time. Our beautiful cookies are out of the oven, and we just need to wait for them to come to room temperature, and then I'll plate them up. These are a great cookie for the kids and grandkids to help make. No fancy decorating is required. Just roll the balls of dough in powdered sugar and then bake. always a winner and sure to become a holiday favorite.